All right, everybody. Welcome back to another week here on the Whiskey Gingers podcast. I'm Brandon. He's Chris. We're finally back in the same location, being able to do this after really a challenging May in
It
general.
was a challenging day.
A couple virtuals thrown in there, a couple guest hosts thrown in there. We had to go to the bench a couple of times just to make sure we had content coming out to you guys. But hopefully June's going to be a little bit better, and we're kicking it off with a bang. Chris bought the whiskey this week, so I want him to intro it, but it's a little star power in the building when it comes to this week's whiskey.
All right, so we have with us today Traveler Whiskey, which has got very, very simple branding. I'm going to try and get it in there. It's close. Traveler Whiskey. You're going to have to bear with us as well. We have a stand-in camera today.
Yeah, I didn't get to go home and get my equipment, so
Totally fine. It seems to be picking us up fine. Hopefully the audio is fine, but basically the long and short of this is Traveler Whiskey. It's a blended whiskey, and it's basically a partnership between the people at Buffalo Trace and Chris Stapleton, which is really cool. I feel like I've heard of this before. I think we may have talked about it back and forth off podcast, but I think that it's going to be a pretty good one. Hopefully, whenever you get one of those celebrity ones, it's kind of I feel like hit or miss a little bit, but I think it'll be pretty good.
We've had luck so far. I mean, Four Walls was good.
Yeah,
That's a celebrity whiskey. And then we've had Buffalo Trace on its own and liked it. We've had their we've been well quoted on all their sister products.
Oh, sure.
So I don't see this would be any different. Chris Stapleton usually doesn't put his name on anything crappy.
You'd hope so.
It hasn't yet. So.
No, I'm excited to try it out. I mean, there's really not much here as far as what we're expecting for like the flavors to be. I just know that it's a blended whiskey, and they didn't really put too much info into it as far as what it tastes like. And I think that it's kind of a surprise experience, and I'm
I
cool
like
with
it.
that.
I mean, I'd rather not know.
It really doesn't have much on there. All it says is blended whiskey. This is blend number 40, so they've done this a couple times, and it's 45% alcohol, and it
One of
was
our stronger whiskeys.
pretty fair price too. I mean, I don't know if you want me to tell you before or after we try
We'll do it.
it.
I always like to find out
Yeah,
after.
find out afterwards. Totally fine.
It's a shame we got a good cork this time, but we don't have the mic to pick it up.
Well, we'll try our best. So easy unwrapping there. We'll go a little bit closer with the cork, see if we can pick up a good sound.
Man, that one would have been real good with the
mic.
mic.
Not too bad. Not too bad. So we'll give us a little bit of a pour, see how we like it.
And for those of you who've been listening recently, it's a fake cork. That kind of became a thing within the last month or so.
I think it's like the difference between I guess like the synthetics versus the authentic ones, but they all do the same job. And I think probably the industry for corks has changed a lot. So I'm sure it doesn't matter.
I'm sure it's mostly synthetic now.
I will say it's got a very nice seal. Like that was tough to put in and tough to take out of there.
Keeps your whiskey fresh. I need to put it in a decanter. I'm gonna have you move that away from the flame attack.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea.
We have a citronella candle off screen here, and Chris put them right next to each other.
You probably don't want to light the alcohol on fire and answer the flame.
No, I don't. And you just got done remarking how tight the seal is, and you're trying to build pressure.
Yeah, no kidding. So, without further ado, cheers to you.
Well, I'd say that's about as smooth as Tennessee whiskey.
Clever play on
here
words,
all week, folks.
Clever play on words. I like it.
Yeah,
I think it's good. It doesn't taste like one specific thing, which it's a blend, so that makes sense.
No, it's kind of got like initially. So my first thought was this is gonna be a little bit too sweet.
It's not.
Like right off the bat, I was like, that's a lot of sweetness there.
Yeah.
But then it immediately cooled off, and then the third act was kind of like a little bit of a burn on the way down. So
I agree with you.
It almost felt like, I mean, I know it's a blended whiskey, so it's kind of what it's supposed to feel like, but it kind of hits you early on like an Irish whiskey. Then you kind of get, you get the bourbon on the tail end. And I'm not sure what the transition was. Yeah.
And it was interesting. I agree with you. It was almost like it was emotional, like listening to a Chris Stapleton song.
It was.
You go through all the emotions on it. But no, I thought it was very good. To your point, the flavor definitely changes as you drink it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you get that whiskey exhale after you take a good sip of whiskey
Yeah.
sometimes, and it's like you get that classic bourbon exhale on it. But to your point, it is sweet up front.
It
I
is.
think it's good.
Yeah, the first one hits you. It tastes like it's like an Irish whiskey. It tastes like a little bit like JMO.
Mhm.
But then there's three phases, and I wish somebody smarter than us who drinks. I mean, I should say drinks more whiskey. Who thinks about whiskey on a higher plane than we do.
Who has a more educated whiskey opinion?
Yeah, could probably tell me what that middle transition is because the top end is Irish, the back end is definitely like Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah.
I just don't know what's in that
How
middle
it
there.
transitions there. I think it's really good actually for especially for a celebrity whiskey. I'll say
Yeah.
that. I mean, like it definitely stands tall for a celebrity whiskey, but I would be willing to say it just stands tall as a good whiskey in general.
Yeah, there was like clearly some real thought into it.
Oh,
I do appreciate. Whoa,
no way! Did you just see that too?
That's awesome.
I was looking at
The camera's never
There's
gonna get that.
zero chance the camera's gonna pick this up. But what's really cool is on the back label you have like your typical norm of your
Yeah,
description
on
and
the
everything
outside.
else. On the outside, when you look through the inside of the bottle,
See if it shows. Might be worth a shot.
there's a map down there, but I'm trying to think where
Here, hang on.
in the country that it's doing that.
Probably Tennessee,
I see Lexington.
Kentucky,
Yeah, see Lexington, and that's the most.
Louisville, top left.
Yep.
Yes, Kentucky.
Yeah, that's really cool. I feel like, oh no,
Oh,
you
it
can
does
see
pick it up.
I'm
Hold
kind of surprised that you can
Let me
see
see
that.
if I can backlight it. If it gets any brighter.
I think that's worse, actually.
Yeah, it's more glare.
I don't know, but that's a really cool feature, and I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No.
And if I have, if it's been on another bottle we've done, I haven't paid that much attention to it. But I made a comment to Brandon off camera here earlier. I really like the simple branding on this. I think that it's cool
Yeah, that's so cool.
to just see that the front label is just plain, but it gets the point across. And then because they did that, you have this really awesome map that you can kind of see in the back.
See if you can pitch down a little bit.
I don't know
There
how.
we go. Right
there
there.
we go. I got it really good when I first tried to show it. But like
Yeah,
that's that's on the back of the label, and it's really cool. I like that.
They could. I think right now, we've had Blanton's like money be damned. I think that's the coolest branding so far.
I do think so. To be fair, though, with it being a Buffalo Trace brand, you had told me it's like a Saserac brand. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. I think that their branding in general is really good, and I think that most of their if they were going to put their name on this in some way, it was going to have to be like a pretty decent whiskey, based on my opinion. And oddly enough, when I bought this, I was standing next to this and the Saserac Rye, because I know that I like the Saserac Rye, but you're usually not as big of a rye guy.
No.
So I leaned towards this instead, but I thought to myself, there's no way either of them would have been a bad pick.
No, and I'm sure the
So-
rye would have been a good rye. I am strongly on the opposite side of scotches and ryes.
But no, I think that that's really cool. I'm pretty won over by it, and
Yeah. How did we miss it? I mean, we both looked at this bottle. I mean, maybe it's the lighting, but we've looked at it several times.
I did not see that. It really was just the lighting here, and it's so perfect the way that it's sitting here.
Well, yeah, the liquid magnifies it and all. Like it's crystal clear.
And I've said it like plenty of times, but this whiskey to me has the ideal color profile for what I'm looking for in a whiskey.
You want that almost that maple syrup kind
Yeah.
of color.
Yep. No, it looks great. So what do you think then, as far as price point goes? I'll tell you what it is, but what do you think price wise that this was?
So I'm thinking celebrity brand, relatively strong, 90 proof.
Mm-hmm.
40. I'm gonna go 44.
You're high on the
Really?
price. You're not high in general. You're high on
Yeah.
the price.
Wow.
It was like $37, I think, something like that. It was
That's not bad.
higher than 35. I don't remember the specific, but it was higher than 35, lower than 40. I can tell you that much.
That's really
It's
not
a really
bad.
good price for what you're getting here. I think that this goes. We should eventually do this. It's definitely worth doing.
Mhm.
Bang for your buck,
Like a
top
bang for your
5.
buck award.
Yeah, like bang for your buck award, and like the top 5 that we think fit in
Yeah.
that category. It's hard for us because a lot of the stuff that we do, I think, is a good
A lot
bang
of
for your
bang
buck.
stuff,
But I
yeah.
do think that this one for me would be in my top 5, 100%.
That one's really high up there. Basil Hayden, bang for your buck. I think it's tough to beat because I think that was sub 40.
It's 40. It's probably I think 39.99 or something like that. But yeah,
so
to
those
your
two
point,
right now are like
really
the
good.
titans of bang for your buck. In
Yeah.
my opinion.
Basil Hayden is amazing.
Yeah.
So we have a write-in from my mother-in-law as a
Oh
shout
yeah,
out.
shout out to
Hello,
Lola.
hello. On the profile for Lola's.
Yeah,
Amazing.
for all your beachwear needs.
Exactly. So the shout out is real. I don't think the market transfers that well from whiskey tasting to shore goods, but
Hey, there are men who like sundresses.
that's true.
You don't have to buy it for yourself.
It's 2024.
Yeah.
That is very true.
You can buy it for her.
So, without further ado, with that being said, I think we spent a good amount of time talking about this whiskey, and frankly, I don't feel like we've undersaid. I feel like there is more to talk about
Yeah,
this.
it's really good.
But in general, I think that we should hop back on. Great to see us back. Thank you for supporting the
Yes.
show as always.
Thanks.
We're
for
happy.
following
We're
along.
happy to
We're
be
back
back.
as well.
We're happy to be back. Our Let's Drink About a topic today was something a little bit seasonal and a little bit, holiday oriented. We were talking about how Father's Day is coming up, and it kind of begged the question: what do you think the most common Father's Day kind of gifts are? And I feel like Father's Day is a weird one because there's a couple categories that definitely jump right out. I would say, like outdoor equipment or, something like that.
You would think.
But
That's
feel
also
like,
kind of the circles that you and I run in. though.
yeah, I mean, like that kind of is personal to us. But I think if I had to guess, that people have a harder time getting Father's Day gifts than they do with Mother's Day gifts.
Yeah, like I know for myself, like Mother's Day, I get usually a text of like 5 or 6 options to
Mhm.
choose from. Whereas Father's Day, like I'm sure everybody's had the same conversation. Hey, what are you doing for Father's Day?
Yeah,
Oh my God, just come by. Like I'm happy with whatever. Just
yeah.
come by. Let's hang out.
I feel like dads
whatever.
get a lot of socks.
Yeah, like I don't even get my dad things anymore. He doesn't watch. I don't think that's how they work YouTube. But for him, and lately it's been like experiences.
That's the way to go.
So like I think last year we went down to he loves Wildwood, so we went down to the shore for a day. My mom doesn't like going to the beach anymore, so I was gonna do a Father Sunday at the beach. We went to his favorite pizza spot, his favorite fry shop, like the boardwalk, like had a blast. This year I got him Phillies tickets to the
Nice.
Father Son ball game.
Nice.
Like no one needs stuff anymore.
They're expensive this year.
It wasn't terrible. It wasn't bad. We're not sitting behind home plate. We're in the building.
Nice.
But I was able to find a study. I think it'd be kind of fun to do because we have a little bit of time.
Mhm.
And it's Father's Day through the decades.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
it's the top gift categories per
Through the
decade.
decades. Okay.
So I, of course, can see my phone. So I mean, I'm not going to be playing along. You can play along at home if you're listening.
Sure.
And then Chris hasn't seen these.
I'm keeping my eyes away.
Well, I'm trying to pitch it this way too. The print isn't big either. So let's start with the 60s and 70s. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Okay.
This was kind of a pivotal time in the changing, kind of a manlyhood in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So 60s and 70s. What do you think were the most popular Father's Day presents?
I'm picturing like people of that generation. They're very hardworking, but there's also a big outlook on appearance in those in like that day and age.
You're on
So
the
I'm
right
thinking
track.
it has to be some type of either like clothing or personal care products. So like something to do with like either like a suit, pair of dress shoes, something like that. That's my mindset on that.
So that's impressively close, honestly, for the 50s.
Yeah.
50s. The
50s
50s,
and
you
60s.
nailed it. 60s, there was a little bit of hangover. So let's just do it for the 50s for fun of it. 50s, the top gifts were shirts, neckties, nailed it.
Yep.
Razors, nailed it. Men's
Mhm.
grooming products, nailed it.
Amazing.
The 60s, what carried over were kind of those same clothing carried over big, but you
Mhm.
kind of entered into like what we call, like meme clothing.
Mhm.
So like a lot of King of the Days, King of the Backyard, Man of the House. So like novelty clothing started taking over in the 60s and 70s. In the 80s, this one's a lot of fun. What do you think was, and this one I have, this one's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
What was the top Father's Day gift in the 80s?
In the 80s.
It's one thing this time.
Oh my God, it's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to say. I'm thinking like I'm going to be way off pace, I'm sure, but I'm just thinking generationally, a generation based on like a lot of music loving and like things like that. So I'm thinking maybe some type of record or something like that, but I could be way off.
Well, 80s, you were heading out of the records, really. But no,
More CDs, but in general, I'm thinking more like
you were sitting strong cassettes.
yeah, that's true. That's
Cassettes
true.
and 8 tracks.
Yeah.
So the top gift for Father's Day in the '80s was whiskey.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
To the 80s.
Yeah. Here's to the '80s. Whiskey and Coke. All right, so that was the '80s. Moving into the '90s and the early 2000s. So this is from 1990 until 2009.
I think we got to be going into tech at this point for like, what you would get your father for Father's Day. I'm thinking it's got to be tech oriented. Either that or my upbringing and our upbringing of starting to bridge into like outdoor equipment for Father's Day because I do feel like that's more of a modern thing to get people,
Mm-hmm.
but I could be way off on that. So my first guess is going to be like an iPod or something, and my second guess would be a lawn care device.
All right, so your first guess, if you had stopped talking, your first guess would have been right.
An iPod.
No, you ruined it with the iPod. That didn't come out until the mid early 2000s.
Really?
Yeah.
The first iPod?
Yeah.
I guess it would be like 2004, I bet.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. That's still early 2000s. But I guess we're also talking.
But
90s.
you're at that point you're negating the first 14 years
Fair
of
enough.
the study.
Fair enough.
So electronic gifts made their debut in the 90s, 2000 Father's Day. Consider the mid 90s tech dad overjoyed at a cell phone that can replace their Rolodex. Their first generation MP3 player, which I guess maybe narrowly preceded the iPad,
Mm.
in the iPod. And then electrical grooming products came to be. So the electric razor and things like that. So you've been pretty on par though.
I'm just thinking about
So
like generationally what kind of advancements came into society because the whole thing about like Father's Day or Mother's Day in general, and I feel like specifically Father's Day, you're always trying to get like something cutting edge.
Yeah.
Like if I'm getting my dad something, men in general are like very interested. I'm profiling here,
Mm.
but men in general are very interested in like what's cutting edge. If I see my neighbor's got like a badass barbecue grill, like new off the line, I want a badass barbecue grill, like new off the line.
Exactly.
That's a very like man's man kind of thing.
Yeah.
Think about even going back to the original when we were looking at like the 50s and the 60s. You see some dude with like a really cool necktie or like a really cool pair of dress shoes, you're definitely wanting that year. Like that's just how guys operate.
Yeah,
they
he's not
see
gonna want
something flashy and they want it.
Yeah. All right. So the last one is the 2010s. And what I will say is this one's a little bit murky because this one is what you should get your dad now, but they do mention two areas that thrive in 2010s. So if you get one of the two, I'll be pretty freaking impressed. So what do you think the 2010s top gift would be? I'm saying gift because it doesn't have to be an item anymore. There's the 2010s open it up a tad.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm gonna jump off of your thought process, and it's kind of cheating, but I'm gonna say like an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know like what I would say the experience is, but let's just say for all intents and purposes, because it's easy and on our minds, a cruise. Like something like that.
Okay, a little large.
Yeah.
So a large shift happens in the 2010s. Over 60% of consumers plan to purchase their dad an electronics or sporting goods gift. So we're kind of getting into like what you were saying, like the manly man kind of gift.
Fair enough. Yeah. Maybe like some memorabilia or something.
Yeah. So in 2011, only 6% of gifts were experience driven. If you fast forward to 2017, the majority of people polled were planning either a round of golf, a concert, or a brunch for their Father's Day gift.
Golf makes sense.
So,
it doesn't connect with me because I've never played golf like in that level before.
But you did hit on experience.
I've gone to Top Golf. That's about it.
Top Golf is sick.
But yeah, no. I mean, like I think that there's definitely a shift in general, and clearly we've showed there's a shift in general. But it does showcase, I think, core like components of kind of being a man in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to be one up by another guy, so we got to have like the flashier thing or whatever. And then as time's gone on and life has gotten crazier, we want that experience, like that kind of that. I think people in general, I would hope, have gotten more away from physical items and more experience items because every day this is going to get preachy. But every day we get more involved in social media and all these different things. So I feel like as a father, if you were, I'm not a father, but if you were a father, you want to spend more time connecting with your family and kind of almost reestablishing those old school traditions. So I think that the number one winner here is for Father's Day. You should get your father an experience because
Yeah,
that's what they
spend some time
want.
with your dad.
They want to spend some time with you. Remember, by and large, most people that are watching this, they're not of the generation where things mattered. There was more
Yeah.
family mattered. So I
And
could
things
tell
are
you,
so easy to get. Like I can see why like 50s to 80s, like it was, you get in the car, you go shop, you stand in
Yep.
the line,
Yep.
you go to 4 or 5 different stores to find a necktie. Like at that point, getting somebody the necktie they wanted meant everything.
there was like a time investment there, and
you
you
spent
know,
a
like
day maybe looking
exactly, yeah.
for it.
Now you hop on Amazon, you pick up like a 20 pack of ties for $10.
It doesn't mean the same.
It doesn't
now.
mean the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, I totally agree.
Whereas like an experience, you saw something, went, oh, that my dad would like that. You cleared your calendar, you
Yeah.
bought the ticket. Like now there's a time investment in that.
Don't neglect your fathers, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
That's they were there for you when some other people weren't.
Yeah, so take it from the 2010s. I think they had it figured out as far
Yeah.
as Father's Day gifts go.
In this day and age, at least. I mean, it would have been cool. Can you imagine being in like the 50s, 60s? Your kid got you like a sweet necktie.
Yeah, because then it was like everything. It was like,
You're like, man, I'm wearing this to work every day for a month straight.
Yeah, like he's going in on Monday. Like Johnson from sales, suck it. Like look at this necktie.
A world's best dad cut must have been like
Dude.
a huge flex back in the office days.
That was like
You
triple
stick that
flat.
you stick that on your desk.
Bang.
It's like, take that, John. My kid thinks I'm the world's best dad.
Yeah. You don't watch Seinfeld, do you?
I used to watch a little bit when it was on TV. I used to watch.
There's a couple great episodes where Morty gets a #1 dad T-shirt, and all the other dads in the 55 and over community are jealous, and they all end up in the hospital trying to prove how great they are. And that's what makes every time I hear that, that's what makes me think of it.
That's hysterical.
Because the last line, like Jerry's there with 4 dudes in the hospital, and one guy was like, I'm #1. Like, I don't know how official any of these ratings really are. I just bought the cup on like it's good.
He was #1.
Well, you could also go Smitty Werben
Jensen,
something like that. Yeah, that show's still funny.
Somehow we just dated ourselves twice.
Yeah, I know. Seinfeld and SpongeBob. If I'm scrolling through TikTok and someone has like a minute of Patrick being useless or like a minute of Mr. Krabs being cheap, clear my calendar.
I never thought that I would get to a stage in my life where SpongeBob became something that was like dated, because it was so current for a long time. Like I think they're still technically making episodes of SpongeBob, if I'm not mistaken.
So a lot of those voice actors, unfortunately, have passed on.
Either that or they, kind of got out of the business. But
no, it's like at least 2 of them died.
Yeah, so like it's very interesting to kind of think about that.
I'm gonna pour one out for Squidward.
Squidward's nose.
Squidward's nose.
Oh man, no, I mean, like I wouldn't have thought that would have been something. You can think about that in many different facets of like shows that we watch and everything, but I would have never thought that I would start talking about SpongeBob as like a past tense.
Remember when?
Yeah, remember when?
SpongeBob?
Yeah, you remember that episode of SpongeBob when? Like it seems so current for such a long part of my life, and I feel like people of our generation, in a weird way, go through this weird realization of time like flies very quickly. It does that for everybody. So like we had access. We're like right in the beginning of that technological age, so we had access to
so many things.
We had access to a lot of different things, but we also still have access to a lot of memories from our childhood because it's archived. Where I feel like people that are 20 years older than us don't have that as much because it wasn't art. Clearly, you have like movies and stuff like that. Pop culture still existed, but there was so many opportunities that everything we did as kids was archived.
Yeah, you're not constantly reminded of the passage of time.
Yeah.
Like you don't have something that pops up and goes, SpongeBob debuted 27 years ago, and you're like, holy.
You flip on like I try and actively avoid going on TikTok just because I feel like I can get lost in there for hours.
You do.
But whenever I stumble upon one of those, you ever go on like one of those nostalgia ones where all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, Night in the '90s, and it's like all these different things. I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, that was what it was like, or like that is what I was watching.
Remember Moon Shoes?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I wanted these things so bad, and I looked at the commercial now as an adult, and I'm like, these kids are idiots. They're not jumping any higher than they already did.
I remember every time I ever stepped on one of those, I feel like I was too old to use one of them by the time they came out. So every time I like strapped on one of like my friend's younger brother's Moon Shoes or whatever, I would just hit the ground every time.
Yeah, because they sucked. They didn't work.
It was rubber bands attached to a big boot.
Yeah, but it doesn't make the bottom of it go any higher off the ground.
It's all a placebo effect, but
I was so
it did
mad
really
at
make you
myself.
feel awesome.
Yeah.
I remember getting in boxing matches with Hulk hands and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
dude,
fun as a
the
kid.
Hulk hands were sick.
Yeah, we had
the-
some cool toys
The
growing
big
up.
wheel bike you could like
Yeah.
drift around and stuff with.
I'm not trying to say that we had like the best toys, but we may have
I
had
kinda
the
think
best
we
toys
did.
growing up.
Because after us, they stopped really doing toys.
Well, they had it right. So like it took many years for them to develop all these toys. Toys in like the 70s and the 80s were outright dangerous.
Yeah,
when
they're
you
all,
think
they're
about
all
it.
painted with
Like,
lead.
they were like ready to kill somebody at any given moment. Not to say that
Lawn
some of ours
darts,
weren't
dude.
either.
Lawn darts.
Yeah, but like when you got to the 90s, you started to get some safer toys, but they also knew what they were doing by that point.
Yeah.
So, like we had the most fun toys.
Yeah, dude, they knew what worked. Like you had, like I said, the big wheel was a huge hit. You had Bop It was like big '90s thing. You had that like I forget the name of it. It was like that. It was like almost like a kickball with you could stand on both sides of it and bounce around on. Some blank on the name.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, dude, it was so cool. Kid, my neighborhood had it.
Kickball that you could bounce on both sides.
In essence, it was like a kickball. Yeah, dude, the name's bugging me, but yeah, you would stand on both sides of it, and it was kind of like a pogo stick with no stick in the middle. So you could like it was always like greater than a pogo stick, but you could move around on it.
We're gonna have to look this up at some point.
Yeah, you could cover some ground.
I feel like if you show it to me, I'll know what you're talking about. But for some reason, I'm blanking on it.
I know it's gonna bug me.
You know, it was really interesting too. It was like a dying age of this is gonna sound preachy. I feel like everything we've talked about is preachy, nostalgia, and rose-colored glasses today. But like in the '90s and the early 2000s, I feel like the imagination factor being a kid was a little bit different. I remember like all the GI Joes and all the different play sets and stuff that you had. I know they still make that kind of stuff nowadays, but whenever I see people with kids nowadays, they just, show them a movie or put them in front of an iPad and play like all those kind of games. I feel like the imagination factor is kind of dwindling a little bit.
Did you ever see this thing?
Oh yeah, no, I do know what you're talking about.
That guy.
It was like it was a hoverboard before a hoverboard was
a thing. It felt like it, but you could cover some distance.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah, like that thing was super cool.
God, do you think if you got on a pogo stick right now that you could
shatter my pelvis?
You could last for more than 5 seconds?
No.
I think that if I got on a pogo stick right now, to your point, I'd probably shatter my pelvis.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be bad.
There was one that was probably super niche. I don't know if anyone's gonna relate to this, but my neighbor and I had these things called Ket cars or Kit cars or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you know what I'm talking about?
Like a modeling kind of like hobby-esque thing, or are you talking about the ones that you race? Like
it was like if you took the motor off of a go-kart.
Oh,
like you sit down, you had like a steering wheel, but it was pedals.
It's like yeah, that's awesome.
It was dude, we thought we were whipping around. We were like merging into traffic and stuff. We thought we were like driving a vehicle.
I do want to make a drift trike. That'd be pretty fun. That's like a kid's
thing. That's kind of like what the big
adult
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, we just had the coolest shit because you got to. The reason I say it's the peak is that, especially for me, I was like, I'm probably there's a couple years between us. Like,
yeah, you're on the younger end of that, but still lived it.
Yeah, I'm the last wave that I think your days were spent all day outside.
Yeah.
And I saw like probably when I got to middle school, I started seeing the split where people started gaming all day.
Yeah.
So you have to figure after us, toy innovation fell apart because it all became digital.
Well, they didn't need to do it anymore.
We had the pinnacle.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
Like they had all of the 1900s.
I mean, think about Toys R Us were like at their prime when we were
Toys R Us
growing up.
was Disney World.
Now I feel like I got older, and this happened years and years ago, but like I just started watching all these Toys R Us's close down, and it kind of broke my heart a little bit because I felt like that was such an established part of my childhood for so long, going in there and seeing all these new things. And I don't care what anybody says. The convenience of stuff like Amazon is great, but there was no better feeling of going into a physical store and browsing stuff that you wanted to get. I feel the same way today, and I've always felt the same way. I can't buy clothes online. I have to go into a store and look at something tangibly in front of me. Because no matter what happens, every pair of clothes, like every shirt, pants, fits a little bit different.
Yeah.
So like I like going in, seeing it physically, seeing the real color of it, not like, a digitized color version of it. I want to see what it actually looks like. Exactly. And I don't like that. And I feel like, as we grow and we shift away from that, we are losing a little bit of something tangible.
Yeah.
And it's not a good thing in some ways.
No, you're right, especially as a kid. Like, I mean, I don't have anything to compare to, so I can't say, but like I'm pretty certain that I would not be as excited if my mom told me, "Hey, I ordered you this bike or this
Yeah.
at this Nerf football or this whatever it is on Amazon will be here on Thursday versus you're sitting at home on a Saturday and your mom goes, hey, you want to go to Toys R Us?
Yeah.
Dude, my next week I'm floating.
If you go to Toys, here's the kicker. I remember we're like getting over, but regardless, I'll do a quick story. It's like imagine going to Toys R Us as a kid, all right, and you see the bike that you really really want, okay, and you're like, man, you're hoping and praying when you go to ask an employee about this that some magical elf in the background has built 30 of these and they're sitting in stock in the background.
Yeah,
it was shattering to you as a kid
We're out.
if they told you we don't have those in stock or we have to build it, so you're gonna have to come back in 3 days.
Devastating. I don't want it anymore.
Devastated. Like it was the worst thing in the world. There was no better high as a kid when you went to a Toys R Us and you saw a bike that you liked, and they're like, yeah, we happen to have like 2 of those in stock in the back right now. We can load it up in your car and you'll be home in 20 minutes driving us down the street.
Yeah.
That was a high. And don't get me wrong, like, if you ordered, I'm sure you could order a bike off Amazon. It would come like practically made for you. The Amazon drivers in your driveway.
But you didn't
making
leave
it for
with
you.
it.
We didn't leave with it from Toys R Us. There's
You
no
didn't
better
go
feeling
in
than that.
bikeless
Yep.
and leave
And
with
leave
the
with the
sickest
bike.
bike on your street.
It was cool.
Like I remember having to do. There was a blue and white. There was a blue and yellow mongoose that like I saw a couple weeks earlier, and it was
mongooses.
Dude, but that was like the Rolls Royce. Of, like that and
if
Harrow.
you had a mongoose,
mongoose
cool.
and Harrow, you were like elite.
Or if you had a Stingray, then you were like the pimp in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
you were cool.
Different circles. Like for me, it was all about BMX bikes.
Yeah.
But I went home like I had a car wash every weekend until I had $150 saved to go get that bike. Dude, you would have thought I just bought a BMW. I'd be out there like waxing my bike. Like it was my parents.
Everybody in the neighborhood is tossing their bike down, but you put the kickstand down when you park somewhere.
Yeah, fellas, we're not animals here.
Yeah,
put your kickstand down.
The Harley Davidson of
bikes. Dude. I mean, my parents must have thought there was a screw loose or something. I'm asking my dad to get me turtle wax at Pep Boys when he goes. Like he must have thought I was nuts.
I'm going to end it on this one word, not to start a conversation, but just for people in the audience to remember, chromies on your bike wheels.
Dude, we used to like. I mean, the statute of limitations is passed. Like we used to grab them off cars.
I was avoiding saying that, but everybody that knows what chromies are knows you didn't buy them from the store. Of course not.
If somebody on the street had cool ones,
if somebody had some wicked sick dice on their tires, like that's on my car. I'm putting that on my bike with a tin can, like a soda can, pressed down in my back tire to make it sound like I'm driving a dirt bike, and that's how I drove around the neighborhood.
Oh, see, we did playing cards.
You could do that too.
You get one of those clothespins, clip it to the little like forks, and put playing cards in there, and it sounded so cool.
And on that, I think our nostalgia trip is coming to an end. We could talk about this until we're blue in the face.
I will say the one cool thing was that was after your generation, tail end of mine.
Yeah.
You started being able to buy chromies that lit up.
Yeah, that was kind of cool too.
Oh my god, dude! You got a set of those.
But the thing is,
they were stolen instantly.
For you, like that probably was like the time that you'd still steal them. For me, I was buying them at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, all right, like now I have some cash in my pocket. I'm working all these like fencing jobs or whatever, just trying to get some money.
Yeah. Now we
went from there. I was probably like 16 when that kind of stuff started coming out.
We canvassed the elementary schools and see who rode their bike to school.
Yeah.
And if you had the light up ones, I'm sorry, they
were gone.
They were gone when you got out.
Well, clearly that people stopped buying them because they were stolen all the time. But I would love. I'm going to end on this. Mm-hmm. I would love to see a resurgence of chromies, light up chromies, and spinner rims.
Spinner rims, yeah. Although,
just because
if you see those three together, you might be in the wrong neighborhood. All right. Well, you guys, I'm sure you're tired of hearing us go down memory lane, but it is a lot of fun. We got deep real fast. We had it the best. I'm sorry.
Definitely. Well, we're back with a bang, guys. We're going to be trying to keep this a little bit more consistent as always. We always make empty promises, but we'll do our best.
We are trying, I promise.
It's not as though we're actively trying to avoid doing these.
Yeah.
Just life happens and gets in the way. But again, thank you guys always for checking in and supporting us. And we hope to see you next time.
Yep. See you in a couple weeks. All right, cool.